With me this morning is our founder, chairman, and CEO, Michael Saylor. Good morning, Michael.
How are you, Jody?
So let's go ahead and jump right in. And so starting at a high level, Michael, how would you say the pandemic of 2020 has impacted the macro economy?
I think that what we found in 2020 and our response to the pandemic is a lot of business as usual was no longer practical, and eventually we found is no longer necessary. So we're all, I think, pretty familiar with some big changes, the transition and acceleration to remote work, and with that transformation and acceleration to remote education. And yeah, you could say 2020 saw a certain crystallization and conversion to a much more efficient economy. You know, I think you could say it's the end of the commute and the end of business travel as we know it. The nexus of business activity shifted from the office to the home, and the nexus of shopping activity shifted from stores to the handset or the computer. Nexus shifted away from hotels, away from public squares. It became a lot harder for us to congregate. It became a lot harder to do things that required mass and motion. And as we found that we have to do things remotely, that accelerated the virtualization of entire segments of our economy. I think most businesses realize now they have to have a virtual storefront. If you're going to sell goods or services, it's unlikely you're going to do them manually, in close contact. And as we have transitioned from doing things manually in a labor-intensive, capital-intensive, real estate-intensive fashion, we've realized our websites are more important, our social media presence is much more important, and the software that we use to either market the product or sell the product or service the product has become much more important. There's a real big shift to we talk about digital transformation. This was a massive acceleration in digital transformation of lots and lots of things.
Yeah, so you've talked a little bit about how it's impacted business operations, products and services. What would you say it's impacted on the financial markets?
The things that we can dematerialize to software travel very, very quickly. We could virtualize it. And so virtual products, virtual services exploded in utility in the last 12 months. Manual products and services were much more challenged and attenuated. And of course, what we discovered is that financialization, anything that can be expressed as a financial product, was able to move virtually. We can move $1 million as easily as $1 billion, as easily as $1. And so those kind of businesses scale very, very rapidly. I think what we saw in 2020, as we call a K-shaped recovery, we saw that manual Main Street-based products and services they disseminated very slowly. They're very challenged. They have to be really completely rethought, and people shifted their demand away from them. And then on the other hand, financial products bounced back much more rapidly. You could almost say the political response to the pandemic is such that it's very challenging to do things that require material and manual labor, but governments found it's much easier to distribute virtual products, and the ultimate virtual product is money, and financial products. So the response to the pandemic tended to be a fiscal and a monetary stimulus response, and that resulted in an explosion of interest in those things. As the financial markets recovered, just about everybody started downloading the Square Cash application. They downloaded Robinhood. They started to focus upon financial activity. if you can't go to a sporting event and gamble on the sporting event, you can go to the stock market and you can gamble on the stock market because it's completely virtualized.
Yeah. Who would you describe to be the big technology winners of the virtual?
As we transitioned from communicating to people in person, we started communicating online, and so you saw a dramatic growth in dependence on Twitter. I think we've seen an explosion in utilization of YouTube. People are now using YouTube to upload educational content as well as upload entertainment content. And in a world where you can't go to a football stadium and you're on your computer, or you can't go to a movie theater, then you tend to go to the products that make it easiest to stream that video. And so Twitter and YouTube are big winners. We all know the story of Zoom, which went from 10 million users to 400 million users in a matter of weeks. We've seen an explosion in social media. We've seen an explosion in online streaming video. We all know the stories of the entertainment online streaming services. I mean, Netflix is a big winner. Disney Plus has been a big winner. And in the business world, AWS, Azure, cloud service providers have seen an explosion in demand. All of these things are ways to virtualize a message, virtualize a service, virtualize a product.
So you talked a little bit about some of the winners of the virtual wave, what it takes to compete, some of the skills that you need in this new world. What is the biggest surprise that you've seen in the virtual wave?
You know, I think we saw YouTube coming, and I think we saw Twitter, and we knew about social media, Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Snapchat. These things, they were all coming. We even knew about AWS and Azure. They were all gradually coming, and even Zoom was creeping. I think the biggest surprise, which was a shocker to me, is the emergence of a monetary network. The virtualization of products and services and things that people did, well, that most people can get their hands around that. They experience that. But the virtualization of money, that's a big idea. We have $300 trillion worth of money floating around in stocks, bonds, commercial real estate, and cash and banks. And it's the 20th century form of assets. And what we saw this year is an explosion, an emergence of a new form of money, and that new form of money is cryptocurrency, and the winning cryptocurrency is Bitcoin. And as we discovered digital scarcity in the form of money, we realized that it's an open network, an open system form of virtual currency. And of course, what's interesting about it is you can plug it into a mobile application. So Bitcoin got plugged into Square Cash and PayPal, and the next stop is hundreds of millions of people plugging their mobile apps into a digital monetary network. And as Bitcoin got plugged into, it's getting plugged into mutual funds and investment funds, and we plugged into our company, we're really seeing the emergence of a dominant digital monetary network. Twitter became a dominant digital speech network. Facebook is a dominant digital social network. Amazon is a dominant digital retail network. Apple is a dominant digital mobile network of its own. And yet we never really thought there would be a digital monetary network. We didn't really need it before March, but in March of 2020, with the K-shaped recovery, simultaneously what we realized is Main Street needs to virtualize, and we needed to virtualize our products and our services in order to deliver them with much, much lower friction and human contact and at the speed of light. And then we also realized that we needed to find a way to virtualize our money, because the financial response to the pandemic is one of monetary expansion, and the monetary expansion has created asset inflation, and the asset inflation has created created a stampede toward a new monetary system, a better monetary system, just like Twitter is a better way to communicate your speech, just like YouTube is a better way to move your entertainment or your education content around. Bitcoin is a better way to move your money around. And that's one I just didn't see coming at all.
So you talked a little bit at the macro level, but when you come back to sort of the company, we term this virtual wave, we use it a lot here at MicroStrategy. What would you say, how have we adjusted to the virtual wave?
Well, first thing we realized is the website is supreme. People need to be able to do everything on your website. So we overhauled our website and we made it possible to go and get all the marketing information you need about the company. We overhauled all of our sales information. We really converted our website into a YouTube type experience because we realized that it's got to be video first. So any question you have about the product, you could find out via video on our website. We turned our website into our best salesperson in essence, because anybody can show up 24/7, 365. They can register. They can find out everything about our products. They can also start a trial. So we made it possible for people to start to do demos and to engage with us. We made it possible for people to get tech support on the website directly. We virtualized our education and made it possible for all of our customers to learn anything on our website. We virtualized our investor relations, how you can go and find that out. We virtualized our recruiting activity. If you want to know what roles are available, they're on the website. So the website really became front and center, and it replaced hundreds of thousands of hours of activity with automated video and automated routines. And that was a big first step. I think the next thing we realized is we're going to have to embrace social media much more enthusiastically. We can't spread the message and communicate to customers by getting on planes and flying to places and staying in hotels and knocking on doors and showing up in offices. It's just not practical anymore. And so we adopted Twitter, and I began to tweet a lot more. We adopted YouTube. We adopted podcasting. You know, we discovered microphones, and we discovered higher quality cameras, and we realized that it's not practical to speak to customers one at a time. You need to speak to customers 100,000 times in a row. So we started to create content and upload it into the major networks, into Twitter, into YouTube, into LinkedIn, and just make it easier for people to communicate to us. And those external things, I think you can see those if you're a customer. There was also an internal set of changes. We really moved toward acceleration and compression of our internal meetings and our business reviews. Used to be we would have 20 people in a technology review, and we'd spend a week working on it. And then we realized that, well, we could just we could upload the presentation as a video and attach it to the review, and then ask the 20 people to watch the video before they showed up to the meeting. And when you watch a video before the meeting, then you can speed it up and watch it 50% faster. If I watch it 50% faster, instead of 20 hours taken up for a 1 hour meeting, maybe it's 10 hours that are taken up for the 1 hour meeting. Well, then what happened next is we realized that half the people just wanted the content. They didn't really need to be at the meeting. So we were able to save their time, and only 10 people show up to the meeting. And then we realized that, well, if everybody shows up to the meeting and they already know everything is going to be presented, in the first 1 minute, we can just start to talk about how we feel about it. So our meetings became much more interactive. And of course, we also realized that 10 people could show up, we could have a 15-minute meeting, everybody could express their opinion, and we could resolve the meeting in 15 minutes. So our 1 hour meeting became a 15-minute meeting, and our 1 week process became a 1 day process. And as that evolved, we realized that we didn't even necessarily need to think in terms of meetings. We could integrate video directly into our systems of record. So if we have 100 features to build in the product, we might create a 2-minute video for each feature, put it into our program management system, And then when I come in the morning, I see 22 features. I click on the feature, I look at the video, I approve the feature, or I give feedback, and there never was a meeting. We actually moved to an organic flow where somebody in China who's asleep when I'm awake is able to upload a video, and I watch it while they're asleep, and I give them my comments. And then the next morning when they come in, they actually know what I think, even though we're in different parts of the world and different time zones. And herein is really the magic of the virtual wave, which is we realize you can bend time and space. You know, it's possible for people all around the world to be working in different locations at different times and yet be together. And once we realized that, we started implementing a 24/7 culture of response, where a customer might call in with a tech support case. We could record the tech support case, upload it in our system of record, and direct it to an engineer that isn't even awake. And then when they get up and they come to the office somewhere else in the world, they can see what the customer thought, they can fix the bug, they can upload the system of record, and then someone 3,000 miles away comes in to work 8 hours later, they see it, they pass it on, and we can follow the sun from the United States to China to Europe. And perhaps 24 hours later, we will have people in 3 different time zones work on the problem, solve the problem, and deliver it back to the customer. And everybody feels a certain intimacy and understanding of what the customer wanted to do. It's incredibly empowering, you know, as we moved into this virtual wave. And the big result is we realized that people in different places in the world could all work together in different time zones. And we were released from the tyranny of fixed meetings. You don't have to fly from Europe to the United States for a week to sit in a bunch of grueling meetings in order to be engaged with other people. You could be intellectually engaged much more intimately in a much more agile fashion. And you could do it from the comfort of your own home. And it's much more physically healthy. It's much more emotionally, intellectually satisfying. I have traveled around the world, Jody, and I remember, you know, flying around the world to give 20 speeches in 20 different time zones. And it's just it's so grueling, right? It's so hard on your body to be upside down in time zones. The idea that you could communicate to everybody that works with you or everyone that relies upon you, and you could do it from the comfort of your own time zone in a comfortable environment, that's a really powerful thing. You know, people talk about, if we think about remote work, the challenge of how you stay intimately engaged with your coworkers. On one hand, you could say, if you're fixed in the 20th century view, it's like, I need them to be in the office face to face or I can't communicate to them. That's one way of thinking. And by the way, that's the way I thought a year ago, right? That's the way I thought you had to be in front of me for me to communicate. And then we went through this jarring transition to the virtual wave, and then we learned how to virtually communicate. And I remember, wasn't that long ago, I spoke with everybody that works for our company in Argentina, and they are 12 hours away from us. And yet I was able to speak with each one of them intimately, engaged, and it wasn't expensive, and it wasn't a challenge or a physical demand on their time, and it wasn't challenging for me. And so I was able to engage with them better, faster, stronger, smarter, cheaper. No real downside. And after I did that, the next week, I met with all of our partners in South America. And so I found that we're much better able to communicate once we embrace these new techniques. And the result is a lot of expensive, painful activity drops away, and a lot of constructive, cheerful activity explodes. And for the organization that can embrace that kind of virtual wave, you can find this incredibly empowering.
Thank you, Michael. And thanks to everybody for joining us. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.